Yeah, welcome to another episode, a special episode of Start the Week with Wisdom. I'm your host, Bridget Burns with the University Innovation Alliance.
And I'm Doug Lederman, editor of Inside Higher Ed.
Each week, Doug and I team up to have a conversation with a leader in the field. This week, it's going to be a little different because we are the leaders in the field. We're doing a co-host episode. Part of the purpose of this show is to ensure that we're listening to the right ideas, that we're focused on the right things, and also that it's done in a hopeful and uplifting way. So that's why we call it Start the Week with Wisdom. And Weekly Wisdom is sponsored by Mainstay, which is formerly known as AdmitHub. They do chatbots. So if you ever hear someone, talking about chatbots, this is the vendor or platform that actually engages in RCTs and has others externally validate that their product works. I don't know that happens with other chatbot companies. So just know that the data that is publicly available comes from Mainstay. And that data is pretty compelling. They helped Georgia State reduce their summer melt by 21%. And they also helped them retain 1,200 students, I believe, in 1 year. So both of those results are pretty impressive. And if you're thinking about a chatbot, ask for similar data externally evaluated from your vendor, or check out mainstay.com.
And Bridget, aren't all our episodes special in one way or another?
They really are. They really are.
So we thought we would talk a little bit about, this is conference season. I'm in LA right now, having just finished one conference, and I think Bridget and I are both going to see each other at the APLU meeting in Seattle next week. And there's obviously tons of conversation around, conversation about lots of different things, but student success was the topic of our conference, and I think it's on the lips of most college leaders now, and it's certainly where much of Bridget's work focuses in the Alliance. But so we're going to talk a little bit about what we're seeing at this time of year, and Bridget, I don't know if you want to start in.
Yeah, well, so you just came from, it was Times Higher Ed and Inside Higher Ed. You're connected. Yes. And specifically student success, which is not something you've always done, but you have definitely spent a lot more effort in recently. So that was in LA. I was in Toronto for NACIS, which is the Auxiliary Services Conference, where I was giving a keynote, and then yesterday at the Northwest Regional Accreditor Conference to speak with them, and then we're going to go back up to see. We're just really in the heat of it right now.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're getting a couple different altitudes of what's going on. And next week we'll spend a lot of time around college presidents and universities, and so it'll be helpful to validate these ideas. But what surprised you at your conference, which I was sorry I wasn't able to come to?
Yeah, it's okay. So we had, this was, as you said, this is the first year we have done, when we became part of Times Higher Education last year, we had a series of events in the US, and this year we pivoted sort of what had been a broad event to make it much more targeted, to be about student success. And we started back in February a content vertical around student success, which is designed to be very practically focused. Every weekday publishes articles about things that institutions are doing to address what clearly is, if not their most fundamental mission, it is, to me, their most fundamental mission, which is ensuring that students achieve their educational goals. And so we've done that. And then this conference, which we called Student Success US, was designed to bring that content area to life. And we have 350 or so people from, it was 110 universities and 31 colleges and universities in 31 states come out to LA. We were out at UCLA, and basically, and they're practitioners. There were definitely some VP level people, but there were tons of people who oversee academic advisors, and people who work on mental health, and people who work on career services, and all the various aspects of what collectively result in, or hopefully result in helping students attain their educational goals. So in terms of what really jumped out at me, I mean, these people are pretty desperate, maybe too strong a word, but really eager for communities of practice. And we can talk about whether conferences are the best way to develop those, but they're looking for ideas. They're looking for ways to do what they do better. And what I think we saw in this set of conversations, there were plenty of conversations around policy and sort of what I would maybe call admiring the problem, which is what a lot of conferences are about. And we had some of that, but we also had a fair number of really targeted sessions, workshops about specific issues. And it was really what happened. The presenters did a great job, but it was really what happened in the interaction between 3 or 4 people who work in nursing programs that were talking about the particular issues they focus. And so what really jumped out at me, and to wrap, is that people really people most resonated when they were hearing from people who talked about having a common problem and how they overcame it, what they specifically did to overcome that problem and move the needle. And so that's what I think people are eager for. And higher ed, needs more spreading of good ideas to help us get to scale and stop having things be so siloed and so segmented. So anyway, that's kind of what was reinforced for me. So I don't know how that resonates with what you're hearing, but.
It's it's squared on the middle. It's kind of literally what I do for a living. It's and your finger is on the pulse that for now almost a decade has always made the purpose of my work extremely clear, because you see these people who really do care about doing a better job. Their data is not where it needs to be. So when you figure out people, it's like, there's got to be a different reason why things are not happening. And for me, early on, in forming the alliance, it became clear that there's like a diffusion problem, that ideas they move too slowly. And even when they do move, the tone and posture and the way we share can be way too braggy and not vulnerable, which is natural because we're in a competitive environment. Like there are a lot of things that are designed in this system to make institutions believe they should stay armored up. And yet we need them to drop their shoulders and share about those problems so that ideas can be solved. But I wish everyone could be in the alliance. This is why I don't just say, like, I want more alliances to form, more institutions to find partners, because there is a need for a community of practice in every topic area to make it less lonely to do this work and make it more likely for you to not have to repeat others' mistakes. So you're totally on the right issue, but I'm just curious what you're thinking in terms of next steps with the conference. So this is your first foray. You try it out.
Yep.
Obviously, it's validated.
I think totally. And I think, literally we wrapped up yesterday, so we haven't had the debrief and the conversation about, but I do think this will become a regular thing. I think in some ways, again, the conference isn't the driver. The driver, one of the things in terms of the content hub, I think we would love to try and find ways. Right now it's pretty one way. We get a lot of feedback. We get there are forms for people to fill out all over the place to share their ideas, and they do. But I would love to try to find ways to build out the community of practice that goes beyond an annual conference, and figuring out how to do that in ways that are accessible and not braggy, but truly bringing people together around areas where they can share and do hard work together. Again, I think what we're constantly on the lookout for ways to do that, and because I do think that is very much what people need. There obviously are people who are selfishly, guarding what they do, but man, I think that the realization that is not in anybody's best interest, I think, is starting to take hold.
Yeah.
At least I'm hoping so.
Well, so there one thing that's very comforting for me is that since we started the Alliance, well, first off, there were already communities of practice. In fact, there were many. I always want to pay it forward, like acknowledge those who came before.
Yeah.
We learned a lot from the CIC at the time. It's Big Ten Academic Alliance. And even though they didn't work on student success explicitly as a functional space carved out at the time, really that is a fantastic, thriving community practice that does incredible things. If you could be in it, yes, I would, no question. But not everyone can, right? And there are a variety of other networks. We're part of something called the Association for Collaborative Leadership, ACL. And so there are like, I don't want to posit the number, but I would probably say close to 50 collaboratives like this around the country, small networks, things like that. And since we started, what's been really nice is the Big Ten Academic Alliance actually has launched a student success kind of place for practice sharing. And then there's URU, which people really love to be part of. I think that's the VPs for undergraduate. I've heard wonderful things. There's, the APLU moved in this direction. There's a variety of spaces where people have tried to find and create small communities, which is fantastic. I would say it's a lot of work to maintain one long term. And the other part is that we still have a hangover right now from COVID. There is still such a, I just don't feel like we always see it so explicitly, but especially when it comes to sense of community and having conversations that feel uncomfortable to have on Zoom, like, tell me the real.
Totally.
So
that's totally, and that's actually, I actually didn't even mention that because it's not, but we continue to have, people are just giddy to be together with other three-dimensional human beings who they have things in common with, and positive things as well as challenges, and being able to talk about those is just different. And so that it continues to surprise me at pretty much every conference I'm at, and it'll be interesting to me to see how long that lasts, whether that starts to fade when people remember how much of a pain it can be to travel, and if we see travel budgets constrained, which I think is probably likely. So anyway, so that's where I think we need. It can't just be the conferences, even obviously. And so, but figuring out how to bring those communities of practice to life outside of conferences, I think is a challenge, and something that lots of people have tried, and a few have cracked maybe, but yeah.
Well, I think this is actually an interesting theme. I didn't see us going here, but like, in forming a network and evolving a network, this is always something that kind of haunts me, is figuring out the right dose. So when we first started, we probably went a little too hardcore, where one year we had 3 really intense convenings, and it was just like, it was too much time away. Plus we do a retreat, plus the board meetings and stuff. It was just like, we definitely bit off more than we could chew that year. It was early. We needed to get a lot of work done. Right now we're at twice a year. And it's a ton of work to put together really high quality experiences for people. It's very valuable, but I just always wonder, like, how much time away from campus is the right amount, and how do you get that right kind of thin slicing of that people are getting the inspiration, the clarity around the ideas to take action on just enough, but then they get back to campus and take action there, and make it so that it's not that I leave campus and this is where the excitement and the great feeling, like getting a community practice almost on the, what does the landing space on your campus look like, so that you can accelerate ideas, actually implement. That's the stuff for me that I'm always like trying to see, and different models of how do you do this in a way that lets, yes, activation, inspiration, that's what you want. But then, the offboarding transition, and then how do you like make it so that there is a cadence on campus that is still, you're kind of like microdosing community.
Right. Well, the one thing that I think you guys do, because you have teams and teams of people, and the biggest problem to me about most conferences is that often people are coming solo, and it's very hard to sustain what that sort of jazzed feeling and learnings and whatever if you're the person who's supposed to come back to your campus and like unload all the learning that you've gotten. Whereas, so I think one of the ways to do it would be to make sure, and again, this isn't an issue for you, but I think for everybody else out there, how do trying to get a group of people, and especially across, I mean, the other clear problem in the student success realm particularly is the siloing of there's Tim Rennick spoke, and I think his list of the entities at Georgia State that needed to be involved in some of the things was between a dozen and 2 dozen departments and people and whatever. And so you're not going to get people from 14 departments to come to a conference, but trying to sort of bring find ways to connect those people, and then that's the likeliest way that some learning that happens somewhere gets keeps being kindled on a conference is by through
So
that.
the way we work is, you're right, it is team, but this is like I believe in aggressively sharing all of what we do, like give it away. But I'm doing it because I'm hoping someone else has a better model, or they have suggestions to improve and adapt it. And often those things don't come strictly from higher ed. That advice that is always so valuable is like coming like healthcare or, other large bureaucratic organizations, even hospitality. We actually have similarities. So and to those in our listeners, if you got better ideas, like I'm interested. So we started, and part of this was with resources, right? I had a certain amount of money that I could contribute and pay for the people to travel. We started with 5 to 7 people from each campus. And I noticed that there were a lot of committees that were, when I look at committee structure and what they're trying to accomplish, it clearly became that those are about communication. They're not about action. And so we use team framing intentionally, where each team should have a goal that they are literally responsible for to the president or chancellor, which for us is their equity gap. And the work changes of the alliance. So therefore the members of the team should change. That is one thing I don't think I've gotten right perfectly. Like we started IRs on there. IRs every year giving us our data. They're not on there anymore. We, when we have completion grants, financial aid, when it's proactive advising, we have academic advising, the leads for that. Right now, it's our first time really stepping our toe in the classroom. Maybe it was insecurity on my part because up until this term, I had not taught in a college classroom, and now I do. And I didn't feel like I had a right to tell people what to do, and I also, I think some degree of reverence and feeling like we have plenty of problems to fix on the outside. So this is our first term where we invited faculty to come as part of the team, but I don't have a strategy to keep the people who used to be on the team included. I'm hoping that they understand, they get the work, they're doing it, and that they remain a fan and a supporter. And frankly, if I had more resources, I would love to have a strategy that is that landing place on the campus. You go to the convening, you hear the ideas, you meet the partners, you get inspired, you get new allies, you get a new concept you want to use to make your practice better, and then you come back, and then like, how do you make that accountability situation happen? So for us, our teams at our convenings actually get team time twice at least. And one of those team times is matched with another team. So we try and make it so that you're not just getting it. First off, you're getting some of the work done. You don't go home and like expect to do this in a 30-minute meeting that everyone's going to be exhausted and busy. So like, we want you to go home from the convening feeling like you got the work done, you have a plan, but then we match you based on what you want to talk about. So whatever you want to talk about, but it's you and another team. And they often are talking more about the nuts and bolts about how the people are handling stuff. This time I'm seeing campuses who are going through presidential transition. It's almost a form of therapy, right? And that's a lot. I just went to one of my campuses and I did the calculation that in the 10 years I've been with them, they have had 7 college presidents.
Wow.
And yet their data is continuing to improve and they have made progress. So I'm like, I want to probe on that. Is turnover what we think it is? So anyway, that's a long diatribe to just in general, the team thing really matters. I think we've made a lot of headway. I would love to find a solution for that transition back to campus. We did create something called the University Innovation Lab, which is a kind of a digital space for their virtual convenings and all the templates and tools and resources that over time we've created to support the network is accessible. And anyone who's a UIA member, if you are an employee of that campus, you can have access to the lab. It's still early, and we're figuring out how to let others in. Now we've made that possible, but I think that's the question: is what is the cadence? What's the dose, so that people are getting that sense of community, but it's about taking action.
Yeah, interesting.
Well,
yeah.
This has been super helpful to talk through in terms of the broad theme of community. I would say definitely that's what I'm seeing. When I was at the earlier conference around auxiliaries, the thing I picked up on is that, this is a space where people are very nervous about retention and enrollment, like you're hearing that, but that the folks in auxiliaries are experiencing that there are big decisions being made that affect them, and they are not in that room. They are not in the room where it happens. And I get that, but how do you connect those two things so that the people who need to actually come up with the tactics and the strategies to evolve the work don't keep being surprised? Now we're all being surprised, but there has to be a better way. When you talk about silos, I think that's an interesting one of literally thinking it's almost like we work in different spaces. So. Yeah. Well, for those of you at home, we hope that this has triggered some questions for you, but ideally you have some answers for us. We want to make sure that we're having these conversations on a regular basis to download what we're seeing that is kind of the most, next level as much as possible. So we will report back after APLU, see what we hear from presidents and chancellors, but clearly this need for communities of practice that are scalable, that people can actually kind of scratch that itch and make it so that they're getting the best ideas and they're able to implement them. That is something that we're both seeing pretty consistently. So I will talk to you soon, Doug. Thanks so much for this week.
You bet.
All right.
See you guys.